what kind of helped me back in the day to kind of understand what blockchains are is to answer the question of when it makes sense to use a blockchain or what settings blockchains can thrive under. And there's two examples from the analog world. So the first one comes from, I think, game theory. It's known as the tragedy of the commons. And it's a thought experiment. So picture a pasture outside of a remote small village, and you have 3 shepherds that all have sheep. And in order to not overgaze the pasture, they kind of have to agree on a turnus on how often each shepherd is allowed to let his or her sheep onto the pasture so that it doesn't flip. So they come to an agreement that, okay, everyone gets to let his or her sheep on the pasture for 2 days a week, and the pasture gets 1 day of rest so it won't flip, and they can also use it next season. So now every shepherd is obviously very much interested in all the other shepherds playing according to the rules. But at the same time, they're also kind of incentivized or motivated to maybe cheat, let their sheep onto the pasture for an additional night or what, so that their sheep get fatter, give more wool. And up until the blockchain times, we kind of manage this through either a social contract or a top-down central entity that makes sure that everyone plays according to the rules. But this, is sometimes hard to track. It can be bribed, it can be broken into, in modern terms hacked. So this is not as suitable oftentimes as one wishes, especially if you think in today's world, hyper-connected, globalized, yada yada. It's really good to have a new approach to this. This is the first example. The second example, I think it comes from computer science. I think some of my colleagues would know better, but it's called the Byzantine generals problem, and it's another thought experiment. So you have to picture a fortress, and 4 different generals that formed the legion try to attack it, but they all have to attack it at the same time, otherwise they will die because they're too weak to take over the fortress. The only problem is that they can only communicate via couriers, and they're in a hostile environment. I mean, they're sieging a different fortress, so they have to kind of operate in a hostile environment. So the couriers can be killed, the message can be forged or whatever, so that they run the difficulty of communicated based on a altered message, or someone says they will attack but they won't attack and whatnot. So this is really difficult. And in a blockchain world, kind of this gets solved through cryptography, hence also the name crypto oftentimes, which enables you to communicate and to come to consensus, to come to an agreement, even though you might not know everyone, you might not trust everyone, and you might have even hostile players in there. So I think these 2 settings really describe or help better understanding what blockchains are and when it makes sense to use them.
Yeah, and then you can go beyond that. So now you've got the system of like a database that is managed, that's secure, that's replicated. There's a consensus mechanism behind it that makes sure that whatever account balance you get displayed on your ATM or on your phone or whatever is actually valid and ready to be spent. You can put other information in there, right? So now you can put any other system that's expensive and that some monopoly uses. Think of legal contracts, right? Lawyers, notaries, even marriage contracts, transfer of expensive goods that require a lot of agreement of multiple parties, real estate, right? Think of the middlemen involved in all of these things, not because they add additional value, but because they are necessary to the process because of existing laws and because of the way pen and paper works, right? You do need that person to physically come. It can't be in 2 places at once. That makes the notary expensive if there's only a handful of them in your country. But if that one notary can do 20 times as many signatures because he can do it from his computer, because maybe the medium is no longer pen and paper, now that one notary can outpace the entire market and dump the price of how much it costs you to do the transaction of buying a house by 10x, 100x. And so you can apply this to any problem where there's a consensus that multiple parties have to agree on, where this has to be done across borders, where this has to be done by multiple people trustlessly, right? Where you can verify afterwards that they didn't just promise you that they executed or changed some state, but where you can look it up and have it on black and white.